Hello, hello, everybody. Today's live is all about perimenopause, the good and the not so good. And my guest today is my friend, Dr. Mariza Snyder. She actually just wrote a book. It just came out 2 days ago called The Essential Oils Menopause Solution. We're going to be talking all about perimenopause, menopause. We're going to talk about essential oils. We're going to talk about what the hell is going on with your hormones during perimenopause. Why it's such a huge struggle for so many women. We're going to talk about insulin problems during this time as well, which is a big part of it. Alcohol, sorry, I know, I'm always a bearer of bad news. And we're going to talk about what you can do. So hang on one second, let me see. Oh, there you are. Hi. All right, I got you. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see all of you on here. Hello, hello. All right, we're waiting on. Hi. Okay,
hello.
Hi. I did not dress up for you, girl. I'm sorry. I'm in sweats. My pajamas.
Do you, girl? Well, I dressed up for you.
Makeup.
No worries.
You look amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Hi. It's so really good to see your face. Again, I feel like we've talked like 5 times this week now. So it's, the 5th time. It's all good.
It's my favorite.
Yes.
It is my favorite. I love you so much. So it's always a pleasure.
I know. I was just saying that your book has just come out, and we're gonna give everybody the lowdown on perimenopause and a little bit of menopause too. But I feel like that's the end game. Ultimately, the perimenopause is like the final runway, and we need, right? It's very bumpy. I agree. It's like a real rough landing for some people. So we'll get into all of that. I think. First of all, I showed everybody your beautiful book, by the way. And everyone, I was in Barnes & Noble this weekend citing my books because I do things like this. It's my month. This month is my 1 year anniversary of my book.
Yes.
Yeah, and I sent pictures of Mariza's book because it was already in those bookstores, which I thought was so cool. I didn't know they did things like that, but girl, you're special. Anyways, we have a lot to talk about. So do you want to get right in? Should we just jump right into all of this good, juicy stuff? I know lots of people have been excited about this. I actually just sent out an email about it. So all right, girl, I got some stuff. Okay. So I think the first thing that I would love for us to talk about is how the hell do we know that we're in perimenopause? Because there's so much confusing information out there. And we talked about this on the podcast too, but I would love to talk about it with this audience as well, just because I feel like women say to me all the time, and I know you hear this too, I am having all these symptoms. I don't know whether I'm perimenopause or not. I don't know when it's supposed to start. I don't know what it's supposed to look like. And is it just period problems, or is it actually perimenopause? Mm-hmm. So what say you?
I would say that if you're asking if it's perimenopause, it is.
Yes, right? Good point. I know, because you're not really 30 and thinking it's perimenopause.
No, you're not. You're not really 30 and thinking it's perimenopause. You're usually like 40, 41, and you're like, what is this? I'm like, girl, it's perimenopause. Because we don't want
to change.
Yeah, yes. I think, and I think the reason why we are questioning whether it's perimenopause or whether it's menopause, is that a lot of us don't want to be in it. I think, and that has a lot to do with society and the way that they've painted this picture of like, it's the beginning of the end. Oh my gosh. And it's not, it's a new beginning. It's where you're going to do your biggest stuff. And so I think that we're like, wait, what is this? And I'm like, you know what it is? You know what it is.
You definitely do. That's a really good point. I feel like, I've said this to so many as well, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, that for me, we're the same age. We're almost exactly the same age.
Yes,
so
we're literally 41. By like a couple weeks.
Like a few weeks, exactly. Yeah. So we're 41, and I feel like when I was 35, if I had a period issue, it felt like a one-off thing. Whereas now I'm noticing small changes. And again, it can be really dramatic depending on how well you're taking care of yourself, because this is the crux of the issue for all of us. But if you are, if you started to notice consistent changes that you've never really noticed before, I feel like that's a good sign that things are just generally changing. And yes, like if you take really good care of yourself, physically, you eat well, you're managing your stress, you're sleeping, these basic things, it will be a less rough landing.
Oh,
What
for
do you think about
sure.
all that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, where we really begin, where the ovaries on a genetic basis, although I will say that the times and our lifestyle and living in this world is shifting things. We are seeing women going into perimenopause and menopause a little bit earlier. And that is
Yeah.
because, let's be honest, like, let's get real about this. It's a crap storm out there that is bombarding us as women. And so our reproductive system will respond in suit. And so for majority of women, usually what will happen is around maybe 35, 36, 37. It depends on, again, how well you're well nourished, you're well resourced, you've got all these solutions, you've been taking care of your body. If you've had pretty tumultuous periods and cycles over the years, you probably will start to feel a little bit of a shift and change 35, 36, 37. And what that will feel like is that'll feel like, I don't think that your cycle will necessarily look different yet, especially, again, body literacy so important. Tracking your cycle so important. How do we know if we ain't tracking it? You know what I'm saying? And so,
Yes.
if you're running a 28-day cycle and now it's at 26 days, we know that those are definitely some perimenopausal changes happening. But often when women are 35, 36, 37, that those shifts haven't happened yet, although we will see a little bit of a dip in progesterone. But what you may notice is that those 25 burpees you did every day, you ain't trying to do those anymore. It's like, it's just harder. Or you'll notice that, that little diet that worked at 25, it ain't working at 35. Like, there is something that happens between 30 and 35. Like, who you were at 30 and who you were at 35, you are different. Your body is different. And then who you are at 35 and who you are at like 42, again, a major shift. And then it starts to really shift, different shifts. And so I want people to know that this 15-year perimenopausal continuum, there are a lot of shifts that happen. I mean, 15 years is a long time. And so if your body is well nourished, well supported, your liver is supported, your gut is supported, you're not feeling overly stressed and overwhelmed and burned out with life, that you can probably get to 42 and not even notice anything that's changing. And then 42, you may start to notice some changes literally with your cycle. That's usually where we start to see cycle changes, is around 42, 43. And so I just want to prepare women that if you're feeling something at 35, 36, 37, don't ignore it. The beautiful thing is what we're recommending to you for 45 is what we're recommending to you at 35 too. It's reducing inflammation, reducing inflammatory foods, loving your gut and your liver. I know you've heard all of this, making sure that you're managing those nutrient deficiencies, like all of these things, doing the self-care, managing your stress response system, boosting oxytocin, hug your puppies. Hug your dogs, if you got a baby, hug your baby, hug your partner. I learned this technique a couple weeks ago where you kiss your partner for 6 seconds in total. Not 6 kisses, like 6-second kisses, or like 1 second, 6-second kisses, like one full 6 seconds. Now, it's a little awkward to kiss someone for 6 seconds. But two things happen. One, it's very clear that you want to stay with them. And number two, it boosts oxytocin levels, which we need more of. We want more of. And that's the same with hugging your best friends, hugging your partner, hugging your dog, 6 seconds. That's where we really see that oxytocin boost. All of these things, whether you're 35 or 45, they're going to help to support your body as you start to make those changes and pivots in your hormone system.
This is so good. Thank you. Thank you. I feel like what comes to mind for me is the fact that we're just not as hormonally resilient during this time than we were at like 30, 31, 32, even 35. And I feel like you'll just, like we were saying, right? There are the small things you'll notice. And I love what you said about your cycle changing. And just, again, like you'll notice maybe your period is heavier, maybe more clotty, and like your cycle is shorter. Those were those are the things that I feel like I hear more often than not when women hit their early 40s, early to mid 40s. So pay attention to that. And I feel like at 35, if this starts happening, I feel like this is pretty easily correctable with
Oh
all the
yeah.
things that we're talking about. Whereas the
I corrected
perimenopause,
it, girl. I was
right?
a
Same.
hot mess at 35. I got married at 35 and I was training like a wild woman. I had a personal trainer every day. I got down to like 110 pounds for my size 0 wedding dress. And on the other side of it, I just burned myself into the ground. I was writing books at the same, I mean, I was planning a wedding and doing all the things and working out like a banshee and still doing like all of my work, all of my career stuff. And so I remember 6 months, I remember April or March of being 35, like my half birthday. And it just, it slammed into me. Like I had weight resistance. My migraines came back. Basically, I was in estrogen dominance because my progesterone levels had tanked. Like I just burned myself to the ground. And then, you know, kind of navigating all of that. And then I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis at 38. And it was just it was a hot mess situation. Like I was in it. And you know, it's amazing that when you're in it, I don't care if you're 35 or 38 or 42 or 43, we absolutely have the ability to turn it around.
You
100%.
do.
And
Yes.
I cleaned all that mess up. And then I got pregnant and had a baby. And 4 months ago, and now I'm in perimenopause and postmenopause. I'm in postpartum at the same time. And I'm birthing a book, baby, too. And
Girl.
I am living my best life health-wise. Like, yeah, I was up 3 times last night, and yet my body is functioning. I don't have symptoms at all. I'm sometimes a little bit tired in the morning just because I was up with the baby. But otherwise, like, I just want to paint the picture for what is possible, because we have the ability to pivot based on what's going on with our body and our symptoms.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I agree completely. And that brings me into, you know, what's actually going on with our hormones. So we kind of have an idea now of what's happening with your cycles a little bit, and, you know, what's driving that. We should totally talk about that.
So let's talk about hormones. Yeah. So and I don't know why, you know, and I don't know why we have to lose progesterone first, but that's the first hormone that goes. And I feel like it's the one that gets taken for granted the most. She is our stress resilience. She's helping us support our stress levels, helping us support our emotional well-being. There's so many great benefits to her, but we do start to lose progesterone levels gradually into our mid to late 30s, into our 40s. And then around our early to mid 40s, estrogen begins to wane, starts to go up and down a little bit. And our ovaries are sometimes listening to our pituitary gland, sometimes not. Sometimes your ovaries are like, shut your mouth, luteinizing hormone. I have no room for you. And then other months it's like, okay. I'll have an ovulatory cycle. Fine.
That's
I'll do it.
perimenopause.
Yeah, that is perimenopause. It's your ovaries are like such a diva in this phase. We're like 1 month, they're like, nah. And then the next month they're like, you know what? I'll pop out 2 eggs. Fine. And, you know, and so it's this kind of rigmarole that happens. Also, we see a decrease in testosterone. And one of the things that I want to speak into is that estrogen is a very protective insulin hormone. So as we begin to lose estrogen, we naturally become a little bit more insulin resistant. And that's something that we just have to be mindful of. We got to pay attention to. But luckily, there's a lot of things we can do to get our insulin back online. And then with progesterone, it's a protector of our stress response system. So as we start to lose that, we may begin to feel like we're just a little bit less resilient around triggering up our stress response system.
And second half of your cycle, that PMS, premenstrual time, it becomes a little bit more precarious, doesn't it?
More precarious. It feels like our definitely our emotional capacity is shifting, our mental capacity, our alertness, as we start to dip in that progesterone. And you guys, you know what that feels like. If you've got low progesterone, it feels like a little bit of like you're losing yourself at the beginning of your cycle. And so we can make changes and pivots on how to stabilize that as well. It can be, it's nutrients, it's herbs, it's the way that we eat, it's the self-care piece. And then you know, worst case scenario, we bring in adaptogens. We have a lot of options here. And then the last thing on the docket, because I do believe that we can make a lot of these changes without bioidenticals, but my mindset is that do all these things first. And then if you need to bring in bioidenticals, it is the smallest dose for the smallest amount of time to kind of ease things out. But if a bioidentical progesterone is going to keep you off the pill at 45 or 47, or keep you away from ablation or a myomectomy, then by all means, add progesterone in before you start doing some of the more invasive options towards the end of perimenopause.
That's so helpful, because someone was saying, how can we add it back into our system? And just so everyone understands, like, your progesterone is being produced by your corpus luteum. And so that's what's formed on your ovary when the follicle, leaves your ovary, or sorry, the egg leaves your ovary. And so what's happening here is that corpus luteum breaks down faster as we move into perimenopause or move through perimenopause, because it's just, again, it's not meant to just last forever. Perimenopause.
We're not meant to make babies
right?
Forever.
Right, exactly. We're not. And menopause and perimenopause are natural transitions in the menstrual life cycle. So just so everyone understands, like what Mariza said, adding in the bioidenticals is amazing, but you really should be working on all this other stuff first. Like, we don't want to just like spread progesterone cream all over us, because
absolutely not.
Progesterone's a really powerful hormone too. I just had someone write me an email. Mariza, I would love for you to speak about this if you had any experience with this. But she said, I tried progesterone cream because I'm in an estrogen dominance Facebook group. And she was mentioning that she had tried it and it has caused her all kinds of problems. And so just so everyone understands, high progesterone and low progesterone, the symptoms are very similar. And, the anxiety, the weight gain, the major mood swings, the feeling of just perpetual overwhelm and doom. And, a lot of this is going to show up if you have too much progesterone. And oftentimes we have too much when we supplement with it. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I want everyone to be aware of that. You don't want to mess with this without working with someone.
Well, I think we got to look at the root cause for why estrogen dominance is happening. We do know that some of that is because of the decrease in progesterone, which is a natural process. But our bodies are normally able to manage that shift if everything else is running properly. And where we fall short is the root cause that's driving estrogen dominance, which is oftentimes our liver and our gut are just a little less resilient. And you think about it, being 35, like take a real assessment of yourself and ask yourself, could my liver and gut get a reset? Could they use a spit shine? Like, could they use some work? And 100%, you're telling me that in the last 35 years, you've been working that gut and liver and haven't maybe paid it any attention, that maybe they're hurting a little bit and they're not breaking down estrogen as fast as they normally should be. And so, yes, I think every single one of us, once we're in our mid to late 30s, we definitely have levels of inflammation that we've got to manage. And so instead of just slapping on a cream or slapping on a patch, we should be looking at what's driving the root cause to begin with. And no amount of progesterone is going to deal with the backup in your liver. There's none.
And your liver has to break that down too. So
yeah, your liver is like, are you kidding me? I got more to do right now. How dare you? Like, I've got a question for you. How dare you? And so we got to look at the root causes. Like when I've assessed thousands and thousands of women, I've asked them in perimenopause towards the end, like, what are the 3 most disruptive symptoms that you're dealing with? It is weight resistance, it is low energy, and it is not waking up refreshed. They feel exhausted. They're not getting good sleep. And I mean, I'll tell you what, a progesterone cream or an estrogen cream isn't going to fix those 3 things. Those are other driven root causes. We got to look at the hierarchy of our hormones. And let me tell you, as much as progesterone and estrogen are big players in the game, they are not the number 1 players here. We need to look at thyroid hormone. We need to look at insulin. We got to look at cortisol. If we are not dialing in these important metabolic, cellular driven hormones, then we aren't really looking at the entire picture. And it breaks my heart that we were sold this pipe dream, and it really wasn't. We wanted to placate women is really what it was. It's like, here, take the pill, here, take the estrogen patch, here, do some progesterone cream, when we're not actually looking at the root cause of what's driving a lot of these symptoms to begin with. And I, for one, I'm over it. I'm not willing to accept this as the answer anymore. The second that we defined a menopause as a condition or a disease state is when we had Premarin on the market. And for me, that is that's just a load of BS. Like we deserve better. We deserve more root cause driven solutions to the entire picture of our body. And when we look at gut health and we look at gut dysbiosis, we look at the estrobolome not working properly, we look at constipation, we know it's directly connected to how our menstrual cycle is functioning. And so why aren't we looking at those things too? We're doing women a disservice by simply them going to the doctor's office and us writing them a script for an SSRI or an anti-anxiety medication, giving them the pill or a patch or a cream and sending them on their way. It is not how real health is defined, and it's not how we're going to get better.
Oh my goodness. Yes, girl, all of this. I mean, we're on the same page with all of this, and it makes me crazy because we constantly hear from all of you that you're not getting answers that you need, and you're just getting these Band-Aid solutions that are clearly, it's like a Band-Aid for a bullet wound ultimately, and it's certainly not going to fix it. And I think that, obviously I want to acknowledge that there is a bit of evolutionary mismatch, which is basically what you're talking about. Yes. Is that we're up against so much. There's so much that we never had to contend with 50, 100 years ago. I mean, we had different problems then, but now we're just bombarded by pretty much everything from every direction. And it's really challenging. And, this speaks to what someone asked. So someone asked, do you start perimenopause sooner if you haven't had kids? And I would love to hear what your thoughts are, but I feel like, okay, I'm a person who does not have kids, and I don't know that I'm like in full on perimenopause by any means, because nothing's really changed for me. And I'm like, maybe it might be the opposite. You start it later because you don't have the stress. I mean, kids are great, obviously, but they're really stressful. There's a lot that's involved in having children. And I feel like from all my mom friends, they're like maxed out, especially after this year, and they're having all these period problems. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
That's a great question. I mean, I would say, and I can speak, we're looking at a lot of the research right now, but I think a lot of what's shifting women heading into perimenopause and menopause more are some other root causes. I think it's the insidiousness of stress and trauma. It's lack of nutrient deficiencies because our food supply is just not delivering for us. It is the amount of bombardment of toxins that literally you look around every room in your house and you have to wonder like what's off-gassing or what's causing endocrine disruption. And the other thing is really, what kind of like, how are we supporting our gut and our livers? I think these are the root causes that could be, if we're not addressing these things, this is what's bringing on perimenopause and menopause earlier. I wouldn't say that it's a lack of having children, because I was in perimenopause at 35, 36. I didn't have kids. And now I had a baby at 41. And I'm still in it. I mean, symptoms aren't there, but I know things are shifting. I know that things are shifting. And so I had, we're talking about supplementing progesterone. I don't mind being very candid, but I had a miscarriage when I got pregnant back in January of 2020. And a big part of it was because my progesterone levels, although they were decent, they were not robust enough. And so I ended up supplementing with progesterone for 3 months until I got pregnant with our baby boy. In March that year. And so I just want to speak into the fact that my progesterone levels were definitely, I mean, they had tanked in my mid-30s. I got them to a decent level by the time I tried to get pregnant, but it just wasn't enough. And so we did supplement a little bit with that. And then I came off of that once I was in my first trimester of pregnancy. And so
I'm so glad you shared that. Again, everyone needs to do what's right for them. That's the other thing too, right? Like you said, you can start the foundation and really focus on that, but sometimes we need a little bit more help. And I think it's really important for all of us to acknowledge that.
Yes. And I think the big part of this all is every single one of us are individual, and we have to listen to our bodies. I know I only have a couple more minutes, but I wanted to speak into the fact, like, one of the things that I know won't come back for me is, girl, no more wine down, no more champagne campaign. Yeah. Sugar is not my best friend. There's just a lot of things that, like, I am pivoting with my body. I have a genetic predisposition for type 2 diabetes. I'm Mexican. My family has a lot of diabetes in their family. I have an uncle. My sister is pre-diabetic right now. I just think about all the people in my life, and I want to ensure that my insulin levels are stable, that my cortisol levels are happy, that my thyroid is dialed in. I'm willing, if I want to feel great, 40s and beyond, I gotta get super clear about what my body loves and what it doesn't. super clear about how to nourish my mitochondria and my cells on that cellular level, and really tune into what is going to allow me to show up in the world for my family, my partner, my best friends, and my community. And what that means is things have got to go. I'll tell you what, like, late night staying up, gone.
Oh, that's so gone for me
wine,
too.
gone. Just a lot of things, desserts in the middle, like a little snack here and there, a kind bar at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like there's just things that I know aren't serving me and my body. And I'm willing to make those pivots. I'm willing to make those pivots because I want to saunter all throughout my 40s and 50s and beyond. And I want to do that with so much grace and joy and energy. I know that what was working for me in my 20s, and it probably was never working for me then either. I just didn't know it.
Let's be real.
What was working for me in my 20s and 30s, it ain't working for me anymore. And I'm good with that. I'm good with making the changes that need to be made so that I can feel phenomenal moving forward. And I think we just got to get real with what that looks like for us. And so even though it's inevitable that we go through perimenopause and menopause, suffering is 100% optional. And it's really optional based on how you choose to operate and how you choose to live your life. And what I know to be true is how we start our day, how we do our day is how we live our life down the road. And every day has got to be a commitment to our health and well-being, especially for us as women, because there's so many shifts that are going on within our endocrine system.
It's so critical that you've just said all of that, because first of all, Wendy is here. Hi, Wendy.
Hey, Wendy.
Our book agent.
Our book agent, our rock star, who is literally, talk about redefining life on her terms. Our book agent is gorgeous, magnetic. She is confident. She's a rock star, and she is like taking it all in stride. And I love Wendy, so many women being the example of what's possible. Yes. And I've had so many conversations with Wendy about health and wellness and hormones over the years. And she's really clear about what works and what doesn't, and how she wants to feel every single day so that she can support women like us to go and do the big work that we need to do in the world. If it wasn't for the rocks.
Oh, did I lose you? Oh, there you are.
It's who shares and who really paints the picture for what is possible for every one of us. I mean, we just get to see how we get to saunter into these next new beginnings in our lives.
Yes. Thank you. Because I feel like this conversation, I have a couple more minutes, if you do, to talk about, the insulin side of things, the alcohol side of things, because like Mariza was just saying, we go into this phase of our lives, and the things that were okay, maybe not working, but that worked okay for us, like,
we got away with it.
Right? Like you could drink half a bottle of wine every night and use that to wind down. Whatever it is that you were doing just doesn't work. Like for me, it's now I'm really recognizing it. Like the sleep component is so huge. If you're not getting good sleep during this decade of your life, you're kind of screwed. I'm sorry. It really is so true. And I know a lot of us are postpartum during this time too. So Mariza, I feel like you've managed to figure out a way to make it work so that you're getting good enough sleep.
I know. I see a comment that it's unfair that women have to figure it out on their own. But here's the thing is they don't. We do know. We've dialed it in. I wrote this as a comprehensive guide so that women never felt like they had to do it on their own. No, you're right. Are we going to, our typical medical doctor, our primary care physician going to know what's going on? No, they're not hormone experts. It is what it is. Like, and if, as long as we've got great resources out there that can help navigate what's going on with our bodies, check in with your primary, whatever, but there are great resources out there. I wanted to just speak into that. And that's what I promise you, that is what this is. I always write a book with the intention of like, what would I want? What would I need moving forward in my journey? Like how do I set myself up for success? How does any one woman set themselves up for success? And that's exactly how I reverse engineered to write this book, so that anything that came up for you, there was an understanding for what happened, and then well-researched, well-documented solutions that got you the results that you were looking for.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Just to speak to what you said, Nikki, here about this, I know that it feels like you're on your own. I just think that we have to remember that your current medical, you're just your GP. They were never ever supposed to be in the position where they were supposed to explain all this stuff to you in the first place. The system isn't really set up that way to teach us about how our bodies work. So yeah, sometimes we feel like we have to be our own doctor. Like we really have to advocate hard for ourselves. And I feel like Mariza and I have had to do that with our own health challenges over the last few decades. And we've turned that into our passion because we really believe that everyone can do this. It's just a matter of making a decision, like what you said, Mariza, about prioritizing you and how you want to carry on through the remaining decades of your life. And this, I feel like your 40s is your wake up call. It's like we were saying, if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to really struggle. Like it is nothing like you were when you were 30 years old. Like it's crazy to me. I cannot get over it. And also the other thing is too, is the insulin side of things and the blood sugar. If your blood sugar isn't stable, like, you know, remember the days when you were like 31 and you could just not eat for 2 days and you'd lose like 8 pounds? Yeah, that shit is gone. It's gone. And it's like really amazing to me, but it is the wake up call for all of us. Our bodies are literally like, listen, lady, you need to take care of XYZ. And if you don't, it's gonna suck for you, basically.
Yes.
So, and we're really struggling. So many women in their 40s are really having a hard time. And I think it's because we're just constantly working against our own biology.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And I unfortunately have to run, but yes.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes. I feel bad. I have another interview.
You're busy.
But yes, I mean, but the beautiful thing is, and I just wanted to paint the picture of hope, is that we absolutely can pivot. We 100% can pivot. And it doesn't, I promise you, it's not a lot of things. You just have to be willing to want to pivot with your body. That's really what it is. And so as our bodies are shifting, because that's inevitable, they are, your ovaries are bowing out. But we have that ability to make changes to really support our biochemistry, to really support our physiology. And that's what I want you to walk away from this conversation. Yes, changes need to be made, but I promise you, you get to saunter into those changes. And it really, if you're thinking, oh God, I'm already 48, I'm already 50 years old, it's too late for me. No, it is never too late. Never, ever, ever too late. Your body is so resilient and it so wants to work for you. It's just a matter of getting the right things into the body. And I promise you, guys, like you need the book, Fix Your Period. And if you don't already have it, go get it. And then you need this one too, because you need both, right? We need to navigate through both. And, you know, having these tools, having these books that are like $15, $20 that literally we pour our soul into to give you everything that you could possibly need. Like that's what these resources are for, so that you don't feel alone, that you don't feel like you're navigating this journey by yourself ever. I don't ever want you to feel that way. And that's what we pour into them. I recommend Nicole's book every single day because so many women feel lost in their period, in their journey with their menstrual cycle. And that book is a Bible. And I have no problem tooting my own horn. This book is a Bible too. And because, and a lot of, you'll see some overlap in it because again, nourishing our bodies is nourishing our bodies. And so I just wanted to speak into that. I know I got to run. So my other person's calling me, but,
okay. There's one last question here. Yeah. They're asking about menopause as a precursor to autoimmune illness or other chronic ailments. Does your book look at that? I imagine. Yes. I mean, I imagine it does.
It does, 100%. Okay. Yep, I go into it as well. Yeah, when we see those changes and those phase changes, like postpartum, puberty, into perimenopause, and menopause is where we see that uptick in autoimmune, and I absolutely address it in the book.
Amazing. Okay,
thank you.
Yes, everyone. Okay, thank you, Mariza, so much. You guys, I'll stay on with you for a second, and I know you have to go, but thank you again. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, honey.
All right, bye.